Om Apyayantu Mamangani Vak Prana Chakshu Shrotram Atho Balamindriyani Cha Sarvani Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam Maham Brahma Nirakuryam Ma Brahma Nirakarod Anirakaranamastu Nirakaranam Mestu Tadatmani Nirate या उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. May my limbs, speech, vital force, eyes, ears, as also strength and all the organs become well developed. Everything is the Brahman revealed in the Upanishads. May I not deny Brahman. May not Brahman deny me. Let there be no spurning of me by Brahman. Let there be no rejection of Brahman by me. May all the virtues that are spoken of in the Upanishads repose in me, who am engaged in the pursuit of the self. May they repose in me. Om, peace, peace, peace. Before we go ahead, I remember last time at the very fag end, there was a question about a deeply philosophical question about if you realize the falsity of the world, where is any further need to realize Brahman? So the answer is here in the peace chant itself. Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. The central teaching of Vedanta, of Advaita Vedanta, is this one. Everything is Brahman, or Brahman is the one reality of this entire universe. The oneness, the divine oneness of this universe, the divine reality of this universe is what is taught by Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta does not want to ultimately teach falsity of the world. That is a way of realizing the oneness. The ultimate falsity of difference is a way of realizing oneness, the reality of oneness. This oneness, which is Brahman, is what is taught by Advaita Vedanta. We can go deeper into it. It's a very profound subject. Why is there the teaching of falsity of the universe? What good does it do? What is the purpose ultimately of it? So why is it so central to the teachings of Advaita Vedanta and so on? But the purpose is this: Sarvam Brahma Upanishadam. The Brahman taught by Upanishads is the reality of everything in this universe. That is what is meant. Now, let us go ahead. Let me first chant the first mantra and then we will go on. Om Keneshitam patati preshitam mana Kena prana prathama praiti yuktaha Keneshitam vachamimam vadanti Chakshu shrotram kaudeva yunakti. Willed by whom does the directed mind go towards its object? Being directed by whom does the vital force that precedes all proceed towards its duty? By whom is this speech willed that people utter? Who is the effulgent being who directs the eyes and the ears? This is the first mantra. It is a question. As Shankaracharya said in his introductory commentary, we have to visualize that there is a student and a teacher. Clearly, there is a student and a teacher because there are questions and answers. We do not know who the teacher was, we really do not know who the student is, but there's a teacher and a student. And then he explained, Shankaracharya, why a dialogue between the teacher and the student is particularly a good format to present something when it's very subtle. A way of questions and answers is a very good format so that we feel our own questions are being answered. We follow the way of thinking of the student and we get the answers to the questions as they arise. Also, it emphasizes that this is knowledge handed down from teacher to student, which we shall see again soon. It is not something that you arrive at by free thinking. I'll sit down and think about it and come to the enlightenment. No. We need the Upanishads. We need the lineage of teachers and students. All right. Last time I had introduced this question. It's a particularly smart question. It's an amazing question. It shows the level of the student. The student asks, willed by what? Willed by whom? Directed by whom? Do these thoughts come in the mind? do we have this experience of thinking? What directs the prana to function, the vital forces? And my speech, what is the origin of speech? How do I have this experience of speaking? And my ears, how do I hear? What powers it? What illumines my experience of hearing? Eyes, my experience of seeing. So he's asking this question. It's basically the question is about what's that one reality which gives us this vivid experience of life, prana, living, mind, thinking, feeling, willing, desiring, remembering, even the sense of ego, self, all of it is mind. How are we having this experience? What's behind it all? And then sensory experiences. I see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Such a vivid, what we call multimedia experience of life, you know. We see forms, we hear sounds and music, we taste various kinds of flavor, we touch and feel soft and hard and warm and cold. We smell various kinds of fragrances, smells good and bad. We taste and so on. All five senses. But what is the one light behind all these senses? He is using the term Kaudeva. What light, what luminous being is behind all sensory experiences? Now, why is this particularly smart? Because first of all, he knows, this student knows, all of these, the body, the prana, the senses, the mind, these are all insentient, they are all jada, they are all objective phenomena. And they cannot by themselves have a subjective experience. They cannot by themselves be conscious. This is a very important thing to realize. This is where the whole sphere, the subject of consciousness studies, is stuck at this point. This is where the hard problem of consciousness comes up. See, it's like this. If one objective thing is not conscious, then the second one is also not conscious. See, I have got a pad and a pen here, and the pen is on the pad. Neither the pen is aware of the pad, nor the pad is aware of the pen, nor is the pen aware of itself. So the pen is not aware of itself, nor of the pad or anything else. And yet, I am aware of both, this one and that one. I can see both. I have a visual awareness of both. And I'm aware of myself. There is a clear distinction between me, the conscious being, and this pad and this pen. At this point, someone might ask, how do you know that the pad and the pen are not aware of each other? Well, you might say, I don't know, but from all our knowledge, you ask the experts, those who made the pen and who made the pad, did you design it for being conscious? And they say, no, of course not. We have no idea at all. Even the most sophisticated AIs which are in existence, if you ask the people who programmed them, you have designed them to do so many things. Have you designed them to be conscious? They will say, of course not. We don't have any idea of how to make something conscious. So, material things are not conscious of themselves. Material things are not conscious of each other. Yet we are conscious. And we are conscious where? In the mind, in the senses, in the body. And yet these are all material things. In Vedanta, even mind is material. So this, what is the definition of material? In Sanskrit, what would the Sanskrit word be? Jada, object. So it's a very elegant, clear definition. Anything that you are aware of is an object. So if you are aware of the body, body is an object. If you are aware of the breath, breath is an object. Object to what? Object to you, the consciousness. You're aware of your thoughts, of your emotions, of your ideas, memories, then they are also objects. This is quite remarkable because in modern thought, in English, in all our modern thought or psychology, our thoughts, memories, sense of self, these are said to be the subject. I am these thoughts, this mind, I am this mind, and everything else is an object to me. You can even regard the body as an object, but the mind is the subject. According to Vedanta, even mind is an object. Why? On what grounds? On the ground that the constituents of the mind, thoughts, emotions, memories, ideas, they are all experienceable. You experience them. You are aware. When you have a bad feeling, you're aware of the bad feeling. When you are having a good feeling, you're aware of the good feeling. When you have a recall something, memory, you're aware of it. When you cannot recall something, failure of memory, you're aware of it. So memory, feelings, memories, we are all, our desires, we are all aware of them. They are all objects. Objects are not conscious of other objects. Objects are not conscious of themselves. And yet you and I, we are conscious of the objects. How? How is it? And we are conscious in the object, in the mind itself, we are conscious. How is the mind conscious? How are we having a conscious mental experience? How are we having a conscious visual experience? How are we having a conscious auditory experience, tactile experience, olfactory experience? How? So he's asking this question. Clearly, we are all conscious. All of us are. And yet, the material body-mind cannot explain this consciousness. Notice, he is not asking here question about the mind or the eyes or the tongue or the nose. No, no, no. If he asked a question about that, then they would be all separate questions. Questions about the mind, whole subject is there, psychology. Question about the eyes, medical department, ophthalmology, huge department, shelves and shelves of books are there. How the eyes function, how the ears function. ENT department, separate department in hospitals. Libraries and libraries are there. He's not asking those questions, not the biological, physiological question of how you see or hear, not the psychological question about thinking. No, 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 no. He's asking only one question, consciousness. How are these things which are going on, seeing, hearing, thinking, breathing, speaking, how are all these conscious experiences possible? How are they conscious experiences? That's what he's asking. So, beautiful question. Question itself takes us directly to the heart of Vedanta. Now, before I go on to the answer is even more remarkable. The answer given by the teacher is even more remarkable in the second mantra, which we will see. But before that, just an issue which Adi Shankaracharya, in his commentary on the Upanishads, in his commentary on the first verse of this first mantra of this Upanishad, deals with. So it's a deep dive into this text. I'll ask you to bear with me. He takes up a couple of words and he goes on page after page about those couple of words. Very important, however. He makes this the key to unlocking the question. If you notice the first line of the Upanishad, Keneshitam patati preshitam manaha, mind, desired by whom, directed by whom does the mind think, or the mind go to its objects, literally. That means thinks about things. Now there are these two words, Ishitam, Preshitam. Ishitam, Preshitam. Why two words? They mean more or less the same thing. Why has the Upanishad, the student, why has the student used these two words which are very close together? Why? And this is the whole bulk of Shankaracharya's commentary on the first mantra. What is the meaning of Ishitam and Preshitam? And you might think this is too much, but you see, he goes page after page. I'll just summarize the discussion. First of all, the meaning. The word Ishitam comes from the root ish, the Sanskrit grammatical root ish. And the problem is the root has three meanings. It can be used in three ways, ish. One is, Shankaracharya himself says, Abhikshne-arthasya, Gati-arthasya, Ichcha-arthasya. One meaning of ish is to repeat. To repeat something, which is, repetition is one meaning. Then ishnati, that is repetition. Another meaning of the root ish is to go. So to go somewhere or reach someplace, gacchati, in that sense, to go. Then gati, to go somewhere. And then the third meaning is to desire, ichcha, by mere desire. So that third one should be taken because the other two meanings do not make sense here. In that case, the whole meaning of the line becomes, the question becomes, desired by whom does the mind think of objects? So that's the first point I want to make. Then Shankaracharya says, why this is used, Ishitam, is that if you just say directed by whom, the second word, preshita, preshita means directed, commanded, instigated, impelled, pushed by whom. So if only preshitam was used, Shankaracharya is making a case why ishitam has been used. If only preshitam was used, then the questions would arise. By whom is it directed? How does someone direct the mind? Basically, who is controlling the mind? Such questions would arise. Whereas, if you use the word ishitam, then what will happen? Just by the presence of the word ishitam, one realizes it's just like the wish. By the mere presence of some entity, the mind is functioning. By the mere presence of some entity, the mind is illumined. That entity is not directing. That entity is not pushing the buttons. It's not that there is some control center there where the mind is being controlled by some other entity. No. So if you use the word preshitam, that kind of question might come. Oh, so who is the controller of the mind? And how is that person control or that entity controlling? Where is the control center? What is the method of control? Shankaracharya says, Kena preshayitri visheshena. By which controller? By which impeller? Kidrisham va preshanam. What kind of impelling or controlling is meant here? Thus, such questions will arise. Those questions are put to rest by using the word ishitam, which means some luminous being is there by the very presence of which conscious thinking is going on. You are like light shining, and the thoughts in the mind, they're illumined by you, and so that you get the experience of thinking. That's Shankaracharya's argument. Now an opponent, somebody who doesn't agree with this, comes along and says that well, not really, the problem might be that he says, is that really so? Because then it does not justify the presence of two words. If you, Shankaracharya says, just by the presence of something, mind is illumined. That's the question. By the presence of what the mind is illumined? Then the opponent asks, then the other word, impelled, instigated, preshitam, does not make sense. Why should it be there then? Just say by the presence of something, by presence of what is the mind illumined? Rather, isn't it the question that by whose will, by whose words and whose actions? The person who's objecting says, Ichchaya karmana vacha vakena. By whose will, words and actions do we do things, see things? That is the normal meaning of the word preshitam. Instigating means, how do you instigate somebody? How do you command somebody? How do you force somebody or make somebody do things? Either by words or by your own action or by using your will. Either by my will, I am speaking now. Or the teacher says to me, speak. By the words of the teacher, I am speaking now. Or by some other action, I am compelled to speak up now. So in three ways, people can be instigated into action. By will, for example, their own will. I want to do it, that's why I'm doing it. Or by the words of your own words or somebody else's words, makes you do something. Or by the actions of somebody else, or something is happening, that's why we respond to it, react to it. So by will, ichcha, or by vacha, that is by words, or by actions, by these three ways. Ichchaya karmana vacha. This is how this instigation to action happens, this impelling to action happens. Isn't that the meaning of the question? But that's the common sense meaning of the question. If someone says that, the question is, by what did I speak? By what is the force that made me speak? What's the common sense answer? Because I wanted to speak. Because you told me to speak. Because you have invited me to give a lecture. That's why I am speaking. So that's the question. You see the force of the question. Why are you bringing in these esoteric things? The question was, for example, what is it that makes one speak? And what should be the answer? The answer should be because he wants to speak. That's one possibility. Because you have asked him to speak. That's another possibility. Or because of some other action, something is going on because of which he reacts by speaking. Ichchaya karmana vacha. And the student is asking, which of these is responsible for making somebody speak, think, see, hear? This is a common sense interpretation of the question. I hope you get it. It's not a very big deal, but it's just he's objecting to Shankaracharya's esoteric, some luminosity is there by which everything is illuminated. Forget all that. Just give a common sense answer to common sense interpretation to the question. Shankaracharya replies to this. All of this is Ishitam Preshitam. These two words, we're going on and on with that. Shankaracharya says, no. That cannot be the question. It's not a common sense question. He says, na prashna samarthyat. See, what you are asking is common sense. Everybody knows that. Why would the student go to a teacher to ask that? Prashna samarthyat means take the question seriously. And he says, who is asking the question? Dehadi sanghatad anityat karma karyad viraktaha. The person who is asking has got vairagya, dispassion for the world. He is not interested in causes and effects. He is not interested in the impermanent body-mind. He is looking for some ultimate reality. Looking for that ultimate reality, he asks this question. So, he is anyat kutastham nityam vastu bhut samana, looking for something distinct from body and mind. Looking for something which is nityam, eternal. Vastu, reality, bhut samana, desiring to know. He has asked this question. Otherwise, he says, itaratha, otherwise, what you are saying, because of your own will, you think and talk and see, because of some, by the will of somebody, by the words of somebody, or by the actions of somebody, people think, talk, walk around, do all sorts of things. That's the common sense answer. That is a well-known fact. That's just common sense. He says, anarthaka. The question would be meaningless. Why have an Upanishad about that? Everybody knows that. Yeah. Why did you eat the cookie? If you ask your little kid, the kid might say, for example, because I wanted to. Or the kid might say, because you told me to. So I wanted to because of my own desire, ichcha. You told me to. Vacha, by your words. So these are common sense things. Why would anybody ask a question about it? What the question here, he says, respect the question, go deeper. I mentioned last time, the philosopher Arindam Chakravarti said, Swami, stay with the question. We are so eager to know the answer. Arjuna asks a question, we quickly flip the pages. Now, what did Krishna say? What did Krishna say? We want to know. Then, no. Stay with the question. This question is serious. Understand the vibration of the question. Make the question your own question. One of our great Swamis, Bhaskareshwaranandaji, who founded the Ramakrishna Mutt in Nagpur many, many decades ago, he was a disciple of Swami Shivanandaji Maharaj. Yes. So, I've seen the notes of his classes. When he would start teaching the Bhagavad Gita, he would make some observations first, some initial instructions to those who are studying the Bhagavad Gita. So one of the things he said, I remember, prayojanam. He says, why am I here? Why am I listening to the Gita? Why am I listening to the Upanishads? Because I sincerely feel there is a deep solution to the deepest questions of my life. Who am I? Why am I here? What's the point of all this? Where is all this going? I really, really want to know. And I believe, I have faith that there are deep answers to this question. This question is, and then the Swami would say to the students, keep this question vibrating in your mind as you go through the study. Then the study will be beneficial for you. Take the question seriously, keep it vibrating. My life is going on. What is the secret behind my life? What is the one light by which all my experiences are being lit up? Don't you want to know that? Why at all any of this is going on? That is the question. It's a very deep question. But the opponent is not an easy one to give up. So he sticks to his guns. He says, Evam Papi, all right, have your deep question. But I still am not convinced. Preshita sabdasya artho na pradarshita. You still have not made a case why there should be two words, Ishitam and Preshitam. In your telling, oh Shankaracharya, the student just should have said Ishitam. By the mere presence, the desire, or in sense, desire means it's figuratively, by the mere presence of something, blessed by the presence of consciousness, body and mind are functioning. What is that reality? That should be the question. But two words have been used, Ishitam and Preshitam. You haven't satisfactorily explained Preshitam. He says here, Shankaracharya gives a deep answer. This is why I'm saying this is the sort of a prelude to the hard problem of consciousness. Shankaracharya says, no, I have actually demonstrated a case, made a case why two words are used. Sanshayavato ayam prashna iti preshita shabdasya artha vishesha upapadyate. This question is being asked by someone who has a doubt, a serious doubt. That's why this other question other word, preshitam, is also useful. Why? What's the doubt? This body, these senses, this mind, this prana, they are all jada. They're all limited. They're all material. There should be no question of any consciousness here. How is this consciousness coming? How is this subjective first-person experience arising here? Because they are all jada, they are all limited. Do they have their own subjectivity, their own volition, or is there sanghata vyatiriktasya swatantrasya? Is there something apart from the body-mind complex, something independent, entirely independent apart from them, which is illumining them, and therefore we have the conscious experience of thinking, seeing, hearing, spending. It's a question like this. He says, why this second word is used? It's because electrical equipment. I have the laptop here. I have a light here. I have a heater. I have a fan. Now in the shop, the heater does not give heat. The fan does not give air. The light does not illumine. Computer does not work in the shop. The moment I bring them home and plug them in, suddenly each of them seems to get a miraculous power. One is shining, one is, I can do a Zoom meeting on another one, the heater starts giving heat. Now I have a right to ask, what happened to them? They were all sitting quietly, not doing anything. Now each of them is doing, and each of them is doing something entirely different. One is giving heat, one is giving air, one is giving light, one is allowing me to communicate with people in long distances. How? What is, now my question is, are they doing it by themselves? Clearly not, because they were not doing it when they were in the shop. They were not in the box before I purchased them. They were not doing anything. Now they are doing it. Now I'm asking, what is the one thing which got into all of them, which is making them do all these diverse things which they are designed for? If you study the computer, you will understand how a computer is able to do Zoom meetings. If you study the light, you will understand how the light is able to give radiance. Heater, how it gives heat. But all of them require one thing extra, which comes independently of all of them. That is electricity. It gets into them, and each of these is different from each other. They have their own design and purpose. It enables them to fulfill their purpose. It enables them to function. Similarly, the variety of functions which the body-mind does is illumined by something which suddenly makes all of these functions first-person experience, a feeling, first-person subjective experience. We all have this experience. Otherwise, just by themselves, the eyes, there's a camera here, which is taking my picture to all of you. The eyes and the camera, they're not very different. The eyes are a biological machine. The camera is a mechanical machine. Both of them capture images. But the camera has no first-person experience, subjective experience. Ah, Swami, I see you. But I, who am behind these eyes, I have a first-person experience. I see all of you and say, hey, good to see you all. Nice seeing you. So why have I this first-person experience? Why that camera does not have first-person experience? What is it that got into these, behind these lenses, and gives us this conscious experience, which is not there in that camera? Where I'm asking this. So because of that, in order to show there is something independent of the biological body-mind, which illumines the processes of the biological body-mind, two words are necessary. Yes, the actual activity requires preshitam, directed by, impelled by. But to show the subtle nature, I have to show that something by its very presence is giving first-person experience. To show that, I have to use the word, a student has to use the word ishitam. So two words are necessary. Let me make, and so on the debate goes. I'll abandon the debate at this point. Let me make a subtle observation about what Shankaracharya is doing. He's setting up the basis for introducing the concept of pure consciousness. See, both words are meaningful here, ishitam and preshitam. Both are correct. Consciousness by itself gives illumination, spurti. Actually, in Advaita Vedanta, consciousness by itself, Atman by itself gives spurti and satta, existence and illumination. The whole display of this world, body, mind, is given existence by Brahman. Also given illumination, consciousness, because of Brahman. So that's one meaning of consciousness, what one consciousness does. So Ishitam serves that purpose. But also, Preshitam, controlling, directing, that's also not wrong. That's the conception of Antaryami. That's a conception which comes from Saguna Brahman or Ishvara. Ishvara remaining in all beings, Gita says, Jantrarurani Maya. Ishvara actually controls all beings. All our processes in this body and mind are actually being controlled, not just illumined, not just by presence, actually controlled by Ishvara, by that same consciousness with the power of Maya. So I'm saying two things here. When the student asks, by the mere presence of something and controlled by whom, directed by whom our minds are thinking, both senses are correct. To make it even more precise, I will use an Advaitic terminology, Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman. Consciousness as Nirguna Brahman, pure consciousness, it gives existence and illumination, satta and spurti. That's coming from the word Ishitam. But pure consciousness as Saguna Brahman, with the power of Maya, it is Ishvara who is present in all sentient beings as the inner controller, Antaryami. Controls and directs, actually controls and directs. Sadhakas at very high states of illumination, they will always say we don't have free will, everything is done by the will of God, every little thing happens by the will of God. So yes, there is an inner director or controller in that sense also. So these two words are important. One reveals pure consciousness and the other one reveals God as the inner controller of everything. And that will be illumined later on, that will be explained a little later in the Upanishad. Okay. So far, the question. Now, let us go into the answer. Amazing, amazing answer. Shrotrasya shrotram manaso mano yad vachoha vachasau pranasya pranaha chakshusas chakshuratimuchya dhira pretyasmad lokad amrita bhavanti. He is the ear of the ear, and the mind of the mind, and the speech of the speech, the life of life, and the eye of the eye. Therefore, intelligent people, after giving up self-identification with the senses and renouncing this world, become immortal. All right. A lot has been packed in there. This amazing answer. I'll tell you what is the answer and why is it amazing. Now, we all know the answer. We have been in Vedanta long enough. We have done Upanishads. In this class itself, we have done Shruti Shira, the top of the Shrutis. Upanishads are called Shruti Shira, the head of the Shrutis, but among the Upanishads also, Mandukya Upanishad with Mandukya Karika. So you're all veterans, many of you. And then we have done Katha Upanishad, and we have studied the Mundaka Upanishad, and so on. We know the question which is asking, the answer will be Atman, pure consciousness, Brahman. We know all these things. Why didn't the teacher say Atman or Brahman? Oh student, the question you're asking, the answer to that is Atman or Brahman. Because then the student will go off looking for something called Atman or Brahman. Whereas we know the fact is that the student himself or herself, you are that. The direction of search should not be outwards. Direction of search should be into yourself, into what am I or who am I. So the teacher should, then the next objection will be, then the teacher should have simply said, you want to know what is the, who is the Preshitam, Ishitam of your mind, who is directing your eyes and ears, who is making your speech speak, all of that. Yes, answer is you, the self. But that also will not work. If the teacher says you, but I already have a very clear idea about myself. I know what I am. I think I am this person, this body mind. So when I say you, I'll just think I'm the body mind. But the intelligent student has already refuted that by the power of this question. Because by itself, this body mind cannot have conscious experience. It cannot have that. This is where modern consciousness studies, we are stuck at the hard problem of consciousness. How can this physical matter, this brain, generate subjective experience? How? Nothing else seems to do that. How only this biological machine can do that? And nobody has a good answer yet. That's an interesting thing. Robert Lawrence Kuhn's The Landscape of Consciousness. It's in sort of one PDF. You can Google it. It's available online. It's also available on our website. He has categorized, classified the theories of consciousness which are available today. Landscape of Consciousness, Robert Kuhn, Kuhn. And you will find 10 categories of theories, not 10 theories of consciousness, 10 categories of theories. I was glad to see that Advaita Vedanta is one of those theories also. But that means we generally don't have any clear idea. Modern consciousness studies or neuroscience or brain science doesn't have any clear direction, trying everywhere, but we are very much aware of the problem. So if you just say you are the one because of which the mind is luminous, speech is coming, eyes and ears are seeing. But by you, I just think body mind. And the student is saying body mind cannot do it by themselves. There must be something beyond that. If you're talking about consciousness, one can simply say they could have used the word consciousness, Chaitanya, Chit. But the problem is, by consciousness also, we have a general idea of what we mean by consciousness. By consciousness, we mean exactly what the student is asking. Thinking, seeing, hearing, smelling, desiring, remembering. All the functions of the mind and the sensory experiences, that's what we mean by consciousness today. And that's exactly what the student is asking, that this cannot be conscious by itself. There must be something beyond that. So you see the power of the question. Already a lot of 9/10 of the theories of consciousness would be set aside by the question itself. No objective material thing can generate the subject. It's logically impossible. It's a category mistake, what philosophers call a category mistake. So how? Now the teacher uses an amazing strategy. The teacher says, you want to know how you're getting the experience of hearing. How do the ears hear? Here's a machinery. How do they hear? Yes, it is because of that entity called the ear of the ear. You can imagine a student going, what? You want to know how he says, manaso manoyat, how you're thinking. You are feeling pleasure, pain, imagining, remembering, desiring. How? Yes, I want to know. How does the mind think? It's because of that entity, which is the mind of the mind. You want to know how the speech comes, the experience of speaking. Yes. By now the student is clever, he will say that, don't tell me, it must be the speech of the speech. He said, yes, you're right. Vacho ha vacha. It is a speech of the speech. Vacho ha vacham. And the prana, the physiological functions which are going on, or specifically you might say sense of smell also, but physiological functions, prathama prana, that means it's the physiological functions which keep the body alive. How does it function? It functions in the presence of the prana of the prana. And then eyes, how do the eyes give me the experience of seeing? It is because of the eyes of the eyes. So ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech, prana of the prana, and eyes of the eyes. Chakshushas chakshu. Not only that, by realizing this, the qualified person, the one who is enlightened, transcends this body-mind and attains final liberation after death. So, a lot to unpack here. So, by using this terminology, what has the teacher achieved? He has achieved a few things. First of all, by saying ear of the ear, he is pointing out the ears by themselves will not give you a full account of the conscious experience of hearing. It is something distinct from the ear. But again, he is using the word ear of the ear, which means not only it is distinct, but at the same time it is pervading the ear and intimately connected with the ear. The ear is intimately connected with that. It's like the electricity. Electricity is distinct from the computer and the bulb and all of that, and the light and the fan. But the electricity is right there. It has to be right there in the computer and in the light and in the fan and in the heater. So it is the computer of the computer, it is the light of the light, it is the fan of the fan, it is the heater of the heater. It is right there. By using the word ear of the ear, it means something that is, yes, it is distinct from the ear. It's not the ear itself. And yet, it is connected with the functioning of the ear, very deeply so. And then he makes it, says that it is the mind of the mind, speech of the speech. Now, the mind, speech, ears, prana, all of them are speech, so they are all distinct from each other. Just like the computer and the light and the heater and the fan are all distinct from each other. But electricity is common to all of them. Similarly, here by saying the same thing which is the ear of the ear, that same thing, yes, it is the same thing is the mind of the mind. The same entity is the eye of the eye. The same entity is the prana of the prana. So it is one entity, not different. These are not different entities. So one materialist thinker, very famous mathematician, Marvin Minsky, he passed away a few years ago. I think he was at Harvard probably. I saw in one, I never met him, but in one YouTube video in a discussion, I heard him saying that the people keep saying problem of consciousness, problem of consciousness. There is no problem of consciousness. There is just a basket of problems, problem of hearing, smelling, seeing, thinking, variety of problems which people don't know the way, answer to, and they put it all in one basket and say it is the problem of consciousness. I was thinking how close he came to the Kena Upanishad question. Problem of seeing, vision, hearing, thinking. But he thinks that those systems by themselves can answer it. Study the eyes deeply enough, you will see how you are able to experience vision. Study the brain deeply enough, you will be able to understand how you are able to have the experience of thinking and willing and remembering. Here the Upanishad says that student himself knows, no, there is one entity behind all of them. They are not separate, they are not just separate independent systems. There is one entity behind all the systems which make these different systems do what they are doing. So the second thing he has achieved it. Third thing, first thing he has shown This thing which you're asking, this consciousness, it is distinct from the ears, distinct from the mind, distinct from the eyes. Second thing, it is intimately connected with the eyes, ears, and mind. It's right there. It's right there. When you say it's distinct, where will you find then? Because if you say it's something distinct from the eyes or from the mind, eyes I know, here are the eyes. Mind I know, I have got an experience of the mind. But you said something distinct from the mind and the eyes, where will I find them? Just like I say, it's distinct from the computer, from the light. If I ask, where will you find electricity? Right there. In the computer itself, there is electricity. In the light itself, there is electricity. In the mind, mental functioning, in the visual experiences, in the auditory experiences, right there it is, consciousness is there. So the second thing is achieved is to show that the intimate presence of consciousness in all these experiences. Third thing he has achieved, it is one. That one which enables you to think. Thinking and seeing and hearing are so different from each other. And yet, the one which enables you to think, remember, desire, understand, same consciousness which gives you the experience of seeing, same consciousness gives you the experience of hearing, same consciousness illumines speech, same consciousness illumines all our waking, all our dreams, and our deep sleep too. It is one consciousness. All these things he has achieved with this strategy of saying ear of the ear, eye of the eye, mind of the mind. Now, atimuchya dhiraha, the dhiraha, the wise ones, also the heroic ones. The dhira word in many Indian languages is patient, steady, dhir. It rhymes with sthira, which means steady or patient. It means the qualified seeker. The one who wants illumination, has fourfold Vedantic qualifications, who seeks in this way and then attains to this understanding that I am that consciousness. Which one? The eye of the eye, ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of the speech. Then what happens? Atimuchya. He transcends. It's a beautiful word. Transcending means it's not that you go beyond this body and mind. You are in this body and mind. And yet you are not. You realize you are the one consciousness behind all the activities of the mind and the inactivity of the mind. You're the witness of the active mind. You're the witness of the inactive mind. You're the witness and illuminer of seeing, of hearing, of speaking, of all activities, walking, talking, doing whatever you can. All of it is possible because of that one consciousness which you are. And yet it is independent of all of these. If the machine is destroyed, electricity is not destroyed. Notice, these are good examples. The computer or the light or the heater, it all works because of electricity. But electricity is not a part of the computer. It is not a part of the light or the heater. It has come from outside. Similarly, you, the Atman, you are not part of the body. The Atman, the self, consciousness is not like a liver or your kidneys or your brain. No, it's not even the brain. It's not part of the body. It is not even a process or a product of the body or of the even the mind. It is something independent and separate from it. And therefore, when the body mind change or they are destroyed, just as when the computer is damaged or light is damaged, electricity is not damaged. When the instruments are destroyed, electricity is not destroyed. Similarly, when the body mind are damaged or destroyed, you, the consciousness, are not destroyed. In the midst of the functioning of the body, in the midst of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, in the midst of thinking, speaking, waking, dreaming, sleeping, you are this one untouched light, ever shining. This is called atimuchya. I know I am not the body mind, while staying and acting with the body mind. Look at this question. It's a question about somebody who is clearly thinking, who is seeing, who is smelling, who is tasting, touching, speaking. He says so. While in the body is active, mind is active, senses are active, you are this ever-free consciousness. Right here. Just as the light shines on this room, no matter whatever activity goes on or does not go on in the room, the light is the same. not affected, but it illumines everything here. You are like that light. So the light transcends the goings on in the room, but it illumines whatever is going on here. Similarly, you transcend the birth, aging, death of the body. You transcend the ups and downs, the happinesses and the miseries, and the depressions and the excitements of the mind. You transcend, in fact, the entire waking, dreaming, deep sleep of this sentient being. You, the sentience itself, that one consciousness. Then you can say, Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am not the mind, not the intellect, not the prana, not even the ego. While the mind, intellect, prana, and ego are all functioning, and they're all functioning because of me, they're all illumined because of me. They depend on me, I do not depend on them. What am I then? Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am of the nature of consciousness, of bliss. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. This is called Atimuchya. Another name for this is Jivan Mukti. In the middle of life, you are free. You are utterly free, you always were. In waking, dreaming, sleeping, in the 5 layers of the human personality, body, prana, mind, intellect, and the causal body, Panchakosha, you are free, one consciousness. Panchakosha, Vilakshana Atma, consciousness distinct from the 5 koshas. Avasthatraya Sakshi Atma, consciousness, witness of waking, dreaming, deep sleep. So you are free in the middle of this life. But one day this body and mind will cease. These machines have an expiry date. You, the one who is free, who has attained to Jivan Mukti, freedom in this life, when the body-mind cease, you remain as that one light, as that one limitless light. What seemed to be contained within one pot, Ghatakasha, space. When the pot is broken, it seems that the space within the pot merges in the vast space outside. Actually, the truth is, the pot appeared in the space and was broken in the space. Space remained a space. It's not that one consciousness, which is witness of body and mind, becomes merged in one limitless consciousness, which is Brahman. Not like that. One limitless consciousness, Brahman, alone exists. You are that. Temporarily, this pot appeared, this body mind appeared, played around, you illumined it, you gave it existence, it disappeared again. You remain as you always did. That is called Pretyasmad Lokad Avrita Bhavanti. Departing from this body at the point of death. At the point of death, when the body is dissolved back into nature, Amrita Bhavanti, you attain immortality. This what is the meaning of this? This is in Vedanta, it's called Videha Mukti, freedom after the death of the body. So this one mantra, the teacher's mantra, has given you the direct pointing, very skillful pointing towards your nature as pure consciousness by using the language of ear of the ear, speech of the speech, mind of the mind, and so on, eye of the eye. It also shows who will attain this, Dhira. It also shows what is freedom in this life, in the middle of seeing, thinking, hearing, enjoying, suffering, you're still free. You will be free of that enjoyment and suffering, while at the level of body, mind, enjoyment and suffering are going on. This is Jivan Mukti. It also shows Videha Mukti, freedom, the ultimate freedom after the death of the body. Remember, from the perspective of the Dhira, from your perspective, the perspective of limitless consciousness, there is no difference really between the persistence of the body and the disappearance of the body, because you are light regardless. So this is what has been given here. Now, in one sense, the rest of the Upanishad, where further teachings will be given, then there will be a what is called unit test quiz. The teacher will give a quiz to the student. Very interesting. Next chapter will come. Very difficult quiz, and the student will pass with flying colors. What is that? Summa cum laude. So, and then there will be a nice story afterwards and some meditation techniques at the end. But all of them are based on this answer, what we just saw. Let me look at the observations and questions. Sanket says, Why is consciousness study so confused about jada nature of the mind? With so much sophisticated science, should they not be able to figure it out? No, the confusion comes because of number of things. One is all of science is objective. So without any question, the object is taken as the measure of reality. If it is something that can be objectified, measured by your instruments, studied objectively. Again, objective means truth in science. Now, when you are studying the subjective, the tendency will always be try to study it as an object. What will you study in consciousness? What objective thing can you study? You can study these things which the student is talking about. You can study the movements in the body. You can study at the finest level, the functional MRI scans, and the subtle electrical activity in the brain, in the neurons. You can study that. But that's still the objective side of it. That's not consciousness itself. And so this difference between jada and chetana is not clear to them. From an objective view, just think about it. How will you look at consciousness? You look at consciousness as a peculiar set of behaviors. Among all the objects in the world, there are these objects which are living beings, especially these troublesome human beings. They all claim to be conscious. There's something that is going on within them. I also feel as a scientist, something is going on within me. What is that thing? Now I have made up my mind, reality must be a material reality. So that consciousness, even if it exists, I should be able to explain it through brain activity. So even the effort to make a distinction between jada and chetana is not there. Everything is jada. Everything is object. That's the problem. Yes, Shubha Vijaya, some people are wishing. Purva Paksha, somebody asked. Yes. So the Purva Paksha was asking, was making comments or raising doubts about Shankaracharya's interpretation of Preshitam and Ishitam. Gita, the Prayojanam is part of Anubandha Chatushtaya. Yes, the fourfold preliminaries. Before you study any text, Vedantic text, any spiritual text, four things always you must know. What is the Vishaya? What is the subject? In Vedanta, what is the Vishaya? Brahmatma Ikyam. Pure consciousness within me is the one reality, the one pure being, Brahman, in which the universe appears. Atman is Brahman. That is the Vishaya, object. That is the subject to be taught. What is the teaching of the Vedanta? Then there will be Prayojanam. Why are we studying this? What good will it do? It will lead to moksha, to nirvana, to moksha, to freedom from suffering, to attainment of fulfillment. That's the claim. Second, prayojanam. What good does this do to me? Third, adhikari. Who can study this? So what is the minimum competence required to get benefit from this? Notice how they use the word dhiraha, the ones, and that word packs in some qualifications necessary for Vedanta. Otherwise, I can just read the book. I can buy the book or download it from the internet and read it. So, no, it will not work unless I am qualified for that. And then the fourth one is a connection between the subject matter and the teaching itself, which is called sambandha. Landscape of consciousness. Rick has given us the link. Rekha ji says, eye of the eye, ear of the ear, intimate connection. Does this also mean cause being in the effect? Yes, that is also true. That's another meaning. Sanket, does prana here mean the breath, or is something more than just the breath? Something more than the breath is implied. Prathama prana, when the indication is clearly there in the question itself. The primary prana. So in physiology, prana is very important. It's basically the physiological function. It's the life forces which keep this body living. All our digestion, respiration, our hormonal activity, everything is regulated by the prana. This body is healthy because of the prana. Problem in the body, disease because of some malfunction in the prana. Death comes because of departure of the prana. Prana is part of the subtle body, Sukshma Sharira. So it goes, it's like the power pack for the subtle body and for the physical body. When you insert it in the physical body, it's a living body. When it leaves the physical body, then we say dead body. In India, in most Indian languages, the way death is described in Indian languages, pran nikal gaye, pran chole gache. That is, prana has left. Literally, death is departure of the prana. So that prana is meant here. And that prana, also another name is Mukhya prana, the main prana. There are subsidiary pranas, the 5 prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana. And then there are 10 minor pranas also. Anyway, in Vedanta Sara, you will find a list. They're all names of different physiological functions of the body. Abhijit. Could you please explain why the answer in the mantra 2 indicates that which is beyond the waking, dreaming, deep sleep? For example, does not say what gives the experience of abhava, absence in deep sleep. Yes. So if it is one thing, it does in different ways. If it is one thing which illumines the activities of the eyes and ears and mind and prana and speech, clearly the activities of the eyes, the things we see are many, many, many. But the consciousness which illumines the eyes which see many things is one consciousness. And seeing is very different from hearing. Utterly different experience of hearing and utterly different physiological mechanism of hearing. But consciousness is common to both of them, which means consciousness is still the same thing ever shining. If I close my eyes, I'm hearing. I close my eyes and hear carefully. Eyes are not functioning. Eyes have been closed. I mean, they're functioning, but I'm not seeing anything particular. Consciousness is the same. By implication, the functioning and not functioning of the various sense organs and the organs of action, like speech. When I speak and I do not speak, consciousness is the same. Therefore, in their functioning and in the absence of their functioning, consciousness is the same, which means what is dream state? Dream state is when the organs stop functioning. The senses are no longer active, they're not looking outwards. The organs of action have stopped, they're at rest. But consciousness is the same, therefore it illumines dreams. Now it says it is also the illuminer of the functioning of the mind. So therefore it will be if it's the same all the time, when the mind stops functioning, it will still be there. Therefore it will be the illuminer of the deep sleep state also. What is deep sleep? When the senses and the mind are not functioning. What is dream? When the senses are not functioning, but the mind is functioning. What is waking? Senses, mind, and the consciousness are all there. That is waking. So consciousness is there in all 3 states. Rick says, what do you consider to be the most convincing argument for someone who believes that the brain creates consciousness and is not a transmitter receiver? Convincing argument, I mean, for me, for example, the convincing argument would be that the brain is also an object of consciousness. I remember this, it's actually from a Tibetan Lama. He says to conceive of consciousness as being born of material processes, you would have to overcome 2 huge philosophical obstacles. First of all, that the material universe exists apart from consciousness, which is the problem of idealism. Does an external universe exist at all? You might say, what a strange question, but it's not a strange question for philosophers, because philosophers note that the universe is presented to us in consciousness and in no other way. You might say, no, we know that there are stars and planets about which we are not conscious of at all. There are so many places in the universe which we are not, and right here, sitting here, there are tiny things in the quantum level which we are not at all conscious of. So how are you saying it's all presented in consciousness? But what did you say? We know. You said we know. That is also part of your conscious experience. Science is also part of your conscious experience. The possibility that such things are there which are not directly being experienced by our senses, yes, of course there are. But that's also part of our conscious experience. Can there be a universe apart from consciousness? That is the huge question in idealism. Old problem. In India, there was the Vijnanavadi Buddhists, mind-only school. In Western philosophy, you have subjective idealists like Bishop Berkeley and others. That's one problem we'll have to overcome if you think brain is producing consciousness. The second problem we'll have to overcome is the hard problem of consciousness. No material thing has an inner state. Why are you saying only the physical brain, biological brain has an inner state called consciousness? Why? That's the David Chalmers question. To such a person, you have to put forth the hard problem of consciousness in all its force. Now, let me give you another much more modern and relevant, interesting argument. Argument from AI. You see, here I'm using this argument to distinguish consciousness from mind, let alone brain. Mind also is not consciousness. Why? These machines, you have programmed these machines, they do most of the activities which we thought were limited only to human beings, intelligent beings. And they have not only memory, but they have decision-making capacity, they have creativity, they can write short stories, they can make paintings, they're making movies. Somebody showed me a movie made entirely by AI. You give it some prompts, it could write a story. Now you give it some prompts, it will make a movie for you. It will make pictures for you. It will make a moving motion picture for you. And anything, just about anything that human beings can do, these machines are beginning to do at a level of creativity and other activities of human intelligence and creativity. Except one thing, except that they are not conscious. And for this, you don't have to take my word for it. Ask any expert, anybody who's worked in this field. You can just ask them that how much effort did you make, how much effort did you put in to make these systems intelligent? How much effort did you put in? How much work did you put in to train these systems to be creative, to take decisions? Enormous amount of hard work and millions and billions of dollars, from what I hear, goes into giving these capacities to AI. And if I ask, how much money did you spend to make it conscious? How many hours of programming did you spend to make it conscious? They'll say nothing. Because first of all, that's not what these machines are designed to do. Second, we have no idea. We really have no idea. Like Robert Kuhn is showing, we are thrashing about in 10 different dimensions trying to understand what consciousness is. So this is an argument from AI. To put it simply, here is the argument. Almost all functions which were thought to be functions of human mind, intelligence, and so on, they are now being replicated by machines, except consciousness. Doesn't that show you the unique nature of consciousness? Not only that, it's such an intractable problem that experts will tell you that we have no idea how to make machines conscious. We don't know where to begin. Whereas for creativity, for decision making, for intelligence, for making a movie, writing a story or a poem, we know where to begin, and we know how to step by step how to go forward and train machines to do these things. But to be conscious, how? We're just a bunch of theories which doesn't seem to have any traction on the problem. So these are some arguments. Priyanka says the fan electricity analogy, fan etc. is likened to the mind senses, electricity to consciousness. How would one place sophisticated AI models which seem to function like the mind but seemingly without electricity running through them? Without electricity, you mean without consciousness running through them? Yeah, exactly. That's why I have sharpened the question of the student, that how am I having the experience of thinking? The sophisticated AI does not have the experience of thinking, remembering, the inner first-person experience which you are having right now. That's my argument. That's just the argument which I gave now. The AI is not conscious, and yet it can think. I mean, it can show the behavior and the results, the output of creativity, thinking, and all that. It can do that. It's not doing it the way we do it, clearly, but it is mimicking the behavior and the results, and very powerfully so. Which means then, that's the student's question also. Consciousness is distinct from thinking. The student is asking, illumined by what light do I have the experience of thinking? He doesn't ask, how do I think? Consciousness is not how you think. Consciousness is that which gives you the experience of thinking. If consciousness were how you think, then it would be quite different from how you speak, quite different from how you breathe. It's not the actual mechanism of it. The mechanisms are all different. In fact, electricity and instruments example is also applies there. If you stretch it a little further, all the various potentialities of them, they are all built into those instruments. So electricity by itself does not give light. How a thing will give light, if you study the bulb itself, you will get a much better idea than electricity. Electricity by itself does not allow you to do a Zoom conversation. And by studying electricity, you won't get any idea of a Zoom conversation. In fact, by studying the computer and the internet, you will get an idea of the Zoom conversation. But without electricity, it won't happen. Similarly, how thinking happens, how vision happens, how hearing happens, study the ear, study the eyes, even study processing in the brain. But how the conscious experience of thinking, hearing, and seeing happens, they will not reveal. Here I'm quoting Ed Witten, the string theorist. I've quoted him earlier also. He says, as we go along in neuroscience, we will learn in the years ahead, we will learn more and more about the brain. But I believe that I believe that consciousness will remain a mystery. So as you investigate the eyes and the ears, you will learn more and more about seeing and hearing and all of that, but not about the first person aspect of it. Why does it feel like something to see? Amira says, see, let me give the counter example. It should have been easy to make AI conscious. If consciousness was just another function of the mind, was a function of the brain. Think about it. What does consciousness do? It does something very simple. It just does one thing. It gives first person experience, subjectivity. No complexity there. Just one thing, subjectivity. All the complexity lies on the side of the objective instrument. But you have been successful in imitating and duplicating the results of the objective instrument, of the brain, of the sensory system. Now, the AI can do amazing things. See, creativity is a very complicated thing. Decision making is a very complicated thing. Making an AI successfully drive a car in a traffic situation is a very complicated thing. You have been able to do that. How much time it takes to train up such models, and difficulty and subtlety and complexity. Compared to that, consciousness is pretty simple, straightforward, just one thing only. And why is it so difficult to crack that problem? Surely that points to the fact that it must be something different from all objective processes. Sonali says, ear of the ear, mind of the mind. It also means Chidabhasa, which pervades them, immanent. So the distinction is made between Chidabhasa and pure consciousness. Here the distinction is not being made, but yes, all those distinctions will come up later. They are developments in later Vedanta. The Upanishad itself just asks about the nature of conscious experience. Remember, Chidabhasa itself is just a channelization of consciousness. Like the moonlight is just a reflection of the sunlight. So the moonlight cannot exist without the sunlight. Similarly, Chidabhasa cannot exist without Chit, consciousness. The question here is about consciousness itself. Later on, when you ask about the mechanism of it, how does pure consciousness, you say pure consciousness is illumining the mind. How does the pure consciousness illumine the mind? What's the mechanism of it? Well, there is a pratibimba, there is a reflection of pure consciousness in the mind. Those theories will come up later. Jennifer is asking which bhashya are you using. So we are studying the Pada bhashya. That's usually the first one which is studied. And just by the way, our teachers, at least in my case, we never studied the Vakya bhashya. So I don't feel I'm competent to teach the Vakya bhashya. We are using the Pada bhashya all the time. Then Srinivasan saying AI is mimicking more than thinking. Correct. An AI person told me that it is dangerous to keep using words like AI is creative, AI is remembering, AI is deciding. No, no, it's very different from our what we understand by thinking, remembering, desiring, or creating. The results are similar, but the actual processes are very different. The computer is not doing what we are doing. Yeah, it's mimicking, true, but very sophisticated level. Ramya says, how does consciousness choose a body mind to shine? It doesn't choose a body mind to shine. Consciousness is one and all pervading. You are one consciousness. It's always there. Whatever body mind comes up, appears in it, the mind is illumined immediately by that consciousness. Amira says, if I recognize myself as consciousness and understand that this consciousness cannot take action in a conventional sense, can you elaborate on how consciousness directly, instantly has the power to alleviate anxious thoughts in the mind when they arise? No, consciousness does not alleviate anxious thoughts. It will just illumine the anxious thoughts as they arise. But the dhira, the enlightened one, knowing oneself as consciousness, the mind itself will self-calm itself by knowing that, oh, my real nature is the never-changing, ever-shining, ever-there, ever-problem-free consciousness. That's who I am. Immediately, when you think that, the mind will become calmer. How does knowing I am that have the ability to make me feel purnam or adequate in all times? Look at the question. I am that. It means I am purnam. It's like asking, how does knowing I am Amira make me feel Amira, like Amira? Because you know, if you know you are Amira, you are Amira. You know that. That's why you feel like Amira. So if you know I am Purnam, you'll automatically feel Purnam. If you feel Purnam means complete, limitless, and then naturally you'll feel adequate at all times. So very, very naturally you'll feel that. That is the meaning of knowing I am that. Until it comes naturally, is the right way to just keep on remembering this truth? Yes. But remembering in the sense of what? Not in the sense of repeating positive affirmation. No, just in the way that you know you are Amira, you're not just affirming. You're not repeating a mantra, I am Amira, I am Amira, I am Amira. No, no. You know. You don't even have to repeat it. It's effortless for you. It's a fact of life for you that you are Amira. Exactly like that, you have to know that you are Purnam. And after that, if it has not become natural, you take your attention back to that knowledge that I am Purnam, especially when you are in trouble, when there are anxious thoughts. But if it's knowledge, it will help you instantly. If it is not yet knowledge, it's more like something you believe in or you want it to be true or it's a positive affirmation, then it will have only a little bit of effect. It will not take hold immediately. But anyway, regardless, it's good to think about it. Okay. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Please take care, everybody. Stay safe.